but it was so all-encompassing love and acceptance and joy, a deep abiding peace that the greats have written about, but very few really get to experience. So when you have that, I mean, I really didn't want to come back.
So yes, Nancy, thank you so much for giving us the chance to speak to you today. So Nancy had a near-death experience in 1975 as a result of a fall from the top of a ladder as you tried to trim a tree, and you ruptured your liver as you landed upside down on a wrought iron chair. So you were taken to the emergency room, and I believe that's where you started to leave your body. So why don't I give you the chance to talk a little bit about your experience, and we'll go from there.
Sure. That was quite something. I hit the back when I fell from the tree. I hit the back of the chair, wrought iron chair, in the middle. And when I went to the hospital, that they couldn't find what was wrong. So in this way, I was so fortunate since they couldn't find what was wrong. I had the opportunity to go back and forth to the alternate reality over 3 days. So this wasn't just 15 minutes or 2 minutes in a hospital room or in surgery, but I think what would happen is as the liver ruptured, I would go to the alternate reality, which we call heaven. And then when it would close up, I'd be back in the hospital room. So, it was unusual set of circumstances to give me that opportunity to have a 3 day near death experience and get to talk to. I was met by three light beings, what I call light beings, but most people say angels. That doesn't seem to like cut it for me. They were shaped like candle flames and they flickered. Um, and they had a distinct personality for each one. It was separate people, but it wasn't like my Aunt Sue. I mean, I didn't know any of them personally, um, but they took me in hand and were my greeters all the way through the process. And that was made the whole thing quite comfortable.
Yeah.
It's like then I got to know them. They had a sense of humor. And, it's like, okay, so now what's next? Oh, I asked them here, what's happening? And it was quite a wonderful experience. I did have the life review that most NDErs talk about, um, which was incredible. And we're just like in a big science, sit back in a chair and up here is all the stars. Well, that's what this auditorium was like, only what was in review was my life. So you also got to experience, I got to experience everything from the different people's perspective. So if I had said something that hurt the feelings of one of my family members, I experienced it from their point of view, not just mine. So that really has an interesting twist and it gives you a whole level of compassion because sometimes we offend people or hurt their feelings without even realizing that we've done that. You don't know. We didn't intend to. So, um, after the air, I was also showed by the light beings during the course of those 3 days alternate realities that was like, to me, it was like different planets. And, but I don't know that it was different planets. It was just different realities. So I don't have any recall now of if they are all happening at once here or the time frame. And the light beings told me some of it I wouldn't remember because it was just too hard to assimilate it and go back to my life. But it was so all encompassing love and acceptance and joy, a deep abiding peace that the greats have written about, but very few really get to experience. So when you have that, I mean, I really didn't want to come back. And now you've got to understand, in 1975, I was the young mother. I had three children here. And so it's like, and I didn't want to come back. I find that as a parent, the most amazing of anything. It's like, how could you not want to come back? That's your children. So I asked the Lycenes if it would make a difference to anyone if I came back or not. And they said it would make a difference to my son. So I said, okay, leave me back in. So I came back, and as it turned out, when my son was 30 years old, he came to me to die. He had some severe problems that was a heart valve from hereditary heart valve problem. And so he was really suffering. And he went in and out of the hospital getting help for several months. He came back and stayed with me in my house. By that time, I was divorced. And so I was living alone in the house, and he came and stayed at my house. And we took him in to get additional care. He was going to the VA, and they did a great job. But they also told him they thought he was fine. But the truth of it is, it wasn't fine. Now, here's where it's important that it was in 1975, because people these days go in and have heart surgery and get that problem fixed. Now, my uncle had problems with his heart valve. They actually put a pig valve in, which is incredible. But it wasn't near as common, and it certainly wasn't in 1975. So, he was failing, and we couldn't get anybody to tell us what was wrong. And so one day, I woke up in the morning, and he called to me, and he said that he was sleeping in the other room, and he said, "Mom, I don't think I'm going to make it." And he said, "We better get into the hospital right now." We had talked about going to get different opinions so that he could feel comfortable with what the VA had said, that he was all right. Obviously, he was not all right. So as he said, call an ambulance. So I called an ambulance, and as we waited for the ambulance, he was very deep into the process of dying. So now you think, I'm here birthing my son into the next reality, which was very beautiful and sad at the same time. We're multidimensional beings. We can experience more than one feeling at a time. So you have the whole realm. And when I walked into the living room, he was sitting on the couch, and he had his arms outstretched and his head down like this. And it reminded me very much of Jesus on the cross. And he just said, "It's not going well." And when the ambulance came, he had already begun suffering heart attacks. And we went to the hospital, and which, again, I was graced to be there with him all the time, and they were not able to save his life. So I birthed him into the next experience. And of course, I had told him about my NDE. So I told him, my daughter and him, not to worry about heaven. It's fine. We still are an entity, but we're not in the physical. There's no pizza. There's no chocolate. There's no milkshakes. It really is time to stop and smell the roses here. Yeah. We've got to enjoy here. And So, as it turned out, uh, the first experience of my NDE totally transformed my perspective of my whole entire life. I knew that we were here with a purpose, that we were supposed to enjoy all, like I said, the physical components of the care, but we were also supposed to figure out what was our soul's purpose. What um what was the why did we come back and what were we to achieve? And it became so important to me that I fulfill my soul's purpose. And so it was um being with him to rebirth him into next plane was certainly part of it. And the other part of it was to write my book. And I've known for 20 years that I was going to write this book. And it's just like, you get, I moved to California, which I loved the atmosphere there. And I was going to become a minister. And then I was guided to talk about my NDE. So I traveled up and down the coast from Oregon and all the way back and forth to anybody who would give me a venue to speak. I talked at expos and churches to all kinds of groups, large or small, it didn't matter, because I knew people had to understand that we do go on and there's nothing to be afraid of. So the fear of death is one of the major considerations we have as human beings. And my purpose was to alleviate that fear. And if possible, to give them a sense of joy because it is joyful, at least it was for me. Now, I don't know, it's like an event happens and the most important thing is how you respond to that event. It's not so much what the event was, but how do you respond to it? What does it change the way you think? Does it make a difference to your approach? How does it impact your life? So I began to look at that. It was all about our responses. We needed to take control. I needed to take control of my response. And over the years of meditating, and I know you're a meditator as well, from what I've read, that as we tune in, as ask questions of the divine, we get direction. Some marvelous work along those, like Jean Houston, who is internationally known for her work on the human condition. And it's just like, she's amazing. I went to a workshop for her and we were with her and we were to tune in and ask questions of ourself and see what happened. And as we asked questions, as we were in a meditative state, the answers begin to come. And the answers begin to come so fast, I could barely formulate the question. It's like, seek, knock, and ask, right? And it will be given unto you. And so it's like, oh my God, this is really something. And I also just now I got what I call the rushes, which is vibrational attunement. When truth is being spoken, our very self, our soul responds to that. And if we come from that heart space, which is agape love, which means the love of life, of service, helping others with kindness, not just the passionate and romantic love that we think of, but to reach out and give that type of kindness to everyone became what my mission is, to let people know to come from that space. Now, many people do that anyway, or they learn to do it. My husband was at Home Depot the other day and bought a big piece of equipment, and he was trying to get it in my car, which it didn't fit. and and we don't have a pickup. He has had in the past, but we don't have one. So he was putting it in the back seat. Trying to put it in the trunk, and then he was going to give up on it and go in and say deliver it. They wanted almost as much to deliver it as we paid for the piece, right? It was a laundry sink. So a man came by and said, I see you need some help. I got a pickup. Let's put it in my car. I'll take it to your house. Here's this man we don't know. And Mario says, well, where do you live? And he said, oh, out 109. And right, well, it turns out he lived just further out than we did. So it really wasn't even that much out of his way, but he didn't know that. But he saw somebody in his 80s struggling to get this over his box, and he just reached out to help. That so touched us. It's like that's what it's all about. So it can be over just simple acts of kindness that make things better for everyone and touches our soul. So I think the real question is to ask us, how do I want to present myself? What can I do? And instead of just giving a knee-jerk reaction when somebody ticks us off, whether it's a driver on the highway or somebody's thoughtless remark, not to just jump in and give them the works, but to step back, pause, and think of a different response in the situation that can come from kindness. And so it's that agape love, which is the highest form of love, that it's selfless. Like that man, he didn't have anything to gain by helping my husband, but he had the time and he had the trucks, and he was willing to go out of his way to help. And that's what it's all about. We're here to help and reach out to one another, listen to their stories, and not just give way to our first reaction to step out. Pause, take a pause. So that's it's like, what do I really want to, how do I want to really present myself in the world? What do I really want to accomplish? Because the smallest act of kindness can make a tremendous difference in someone's life. It just really can. So here I am I'm 82. 2.5 years ago, 3 years now, I thought, if I'm going to write this book, I better get around to it. You know, I'm a painter. I like to paint. And we have a very loving families and enjoy that. And I paint, and I go to a studio to paint with the other artists and exchange views. So I didn't know how to juggle it. So I stopped painting and wrote this book. And it was a phenomenal experience, Dani. I mean, it would wake me up at 4:30 in the morning and say, go write this. It's like when you're in tune and you're open to hearing from the divine will find you and talk to you, even if it's a message on a sign or somebody at the grocery store. The universe, the divine, what I call the divine presence, will reach out and answer you.
Thank you for sharing, Nancy. I really appreciate it. So, I have so many questions. Let's see how many of these we can get through. So, first of all, I'm always curious to know what your view on life after death was before the experience.
I thought it was pretty much typical Christian. I was raised Christian, and I thought that there was like levels of heaven. So if you like a system of rungs, depending on how good you were or not. Um, the church I was raised in did teach about hell too. And my dad was not of the same faith. So when the minister would got up there and said that if you were given a chance to be in our religion and you turned away from it, you would go immediately to hell. And I sat as a young child in church and cried because my dad was a good guy. What kind of a God, quote, would send this good person to hell because he didn't understand a picture the same way? So I had my doubts at a very young age because of that. And but I always believed in an afterlife, and I thought it was just more of the same, but less problems. And I have to say, it's the closest thing I can come to saying what I learned to think of what heaven would be like after I had my first child was when you hold a baby, when you hold someone you love dear, that you have helped bring into this life, and that love is the purest, just all consuming. You want only the best for this child. You want only goodness. And I thought that's what the divine essence must feel for each of us because we're essentially expressions of the divine.
Thank you for that. And another thing I'm really interested about is the integration process. Because a number of people tend to assume that you come out of this experience immediately transformed, but that's often not the case. Especially in your case, you had the experience at 75, which coincidentally is where Dr. Raymond Moody presented the term near-death experience to the world in his Life After Life book. So I'd be curious to know, yes, like how was your integration process like?
Well, at first, I only told my mother, who came to take care of my children, and my husband. I didn't tell the doctor. I didn't tell anyone else. It wasn't accepted conversation to have. And it was all under wraps. Thank goodness, because of the researchers and IANDS and the other people who have put years of comparing people's experience with NDEs all over the world, that now they can say, look, there's a body of evidence here that there is an afterlife. But it's taken years of research, and there are many every country people have had similar situations. It doesn't matter about which country. It doesn't matter how old you are. Young children have a similar experience. The books and the research, the dedication that takes. I'm so grateful for those people. I talk about some of the people who have helped work to get doctors and nurses educated about the NDE and programs about it so that there's more acceptance within the mainstream that they can get immediately, not be afraid to talk about it. It's still not this not dinner table conversation. Some people are interested in it and some are not at all. I don't know if they aren't curious, but many people are curious about it. And my hat's off again, as I said, to the researchers and the people who've gone before me or for during the time to help educate that this is a real experience. It's not caused by oxygen deprivation.
That's great. Well, so I know your book is about your experience, but also is trying to offer a step-by-step guidance to integrate the spiritual principles into everyday's life. So the next question, obviously, I don't expect you to summarize your whole book today, but perhaps I'd be curious to know what sort of recommendation would you have for NDErs to help with the integration process?
I would say to uh, have have the courage at least to see if in their circle anyone does want to talk about it, to speak up. And then, of course, there are people from IANDS that do meet across the country. So we can meet online now with these facilities like Zoom to keep the conversation going and to have the courage to talk about it and see if anybody's interested in our particular group, to not stay silent, to speak out.
That's right. I'd be curious to know what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned from your NDE?
The biggest lesson I've learned is to tune in to, like I said earlier, to pause and tune in, not just give a knee jerk reaction to what's going on. I was determined to find my soul's purpose, to see what was going to make my heart sing. And when I first realized that the be speaking out about this in a public forum, I didn't know if I could do it or not. So I had to gather my courage and stretch my uh, my comfort zone, so to move out of that and to reach out to people, to put myself into places where I might be able to change or at least give people pause for thought. Pause for thought. And after as I go back to when my son died, and I knew I could reassure him, and my head, Danny, was so filled with light. I could feel this just openness and an energetic that was just singing and holding me all the time, loving me and responding from kindness. Are I guess that's more than one thing I learned from it, right? I learned to love everyone like you love your family. You know, extend that parameter. It doesn't hurt. It's like the man helping my husband at the hardware store who was struggling to get that package in. He took time out of his day and effort and energy to do that with no reward. He didn't say, "Where do you live?" Are you going, am I going that way? Was it going to be convenient? He just said, "Here, let's pop this in my trunk and I'll drop it off." Uh, that meant so much to us. Uh, so I think coming from loving kindness as much as you can to everyone is what I learned the most. And that can lead you to your soul's purpose.
Yeah.
Follow your joy factor. Whatever your joy factor is, feed your joy. Feed your joy. Pay attention and share that joy. So that's the best one thing I can tell you about.
No, that's fine. It's a good summary. Thank you, Nancy. I'd be curious to know what's your idea of God these days?
I think the divine is in each of us, that we are agents of the divine. We're not separate. I think we're all expressions of the divine. And that is the main thing. That is our main connection. And God then comes in various forms of loving kindness toward our others. And so I don't want to ride a motorcycle. I don't want to ride a motorcycle. Other people love that. So I respect that. And I don't make that activity wrong. I don't put them down. I think some of those sports events are very brave for people to endeavor to climb mountains, to ride motorcycles, to be the best swimmer. I mean, all the sports events. I think the divine is in all of that. So I believe the divine is, we are expressions, individual expressions of the divine right here and right now. And that doesn't stop, it just goes on.
Yep.
We just get in that elevator and go to a different floor.
That's right. Well said, Nancy. So why do you think God made us in the first place?
There's nothing quite like the physical, you know? Uh, as intelligent as these people who do the research and everything are, and the scientists and how wonderful, and there's a fantastic science that is coming more and more with quantum physics to think the same way we do, which I find absolutely fascinating. And so it's just amazing to me that we can be in this era, and with the internet and the research, it's like living in a library.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than. So I think it's a very exciting time to be alive. And I think that it is the divine expressing and growing, because, we would get bored if it was all back, and if we all had to ride bicycles, we don't all want to ride the bicycles. Some of us want to be in airplanes, you know? So I just feel that the divine is an expression for enjoyment, really. And, eat pizza, smell the rose.
I love that. That's great, Nancy. I have one last question for you. What's the meaning of life?
Love, love, sharing love, feeling love, learning to respond from love, which I call loving kindness, to a broader group, living to our highest potential. So, whatever that is within you that wants to be expressed of harming other people and our societies. So, that's what I do.
That's great. Nancy, do you have any parting messages you would like to leave the audience with today?
I would just encourage everybody to, as I said, to act from loving kindness. And there are websites on the internet that hold that um, as also as a thing to achieve, as a way of living. And so I would love to see this become a movement where people learned to not only just satisfy themselves, but to have the same respect and give the same grace to other people, to do what's their heart, what makes their heart sing. So I think that we're here to share that, the joy of expressing the divine, which is unique to each of us.
That's the beauty of it. Nancy, thank you so much again. I wish you all the best. I will make sure I link your book in the description below for those that want to know the full story. And again, thank you so much and all the best for now. Ta-ta.
Same with you. Delighted. Bye for now.
Hi there. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the IANDS community, please leave a like, subscribe, and maybe share with the ones you love. New episodes are out each Friday. Until then, enjoy the stream we all call life and live the love you wish to see in the world. Bye for now.